You're listening to the ShireFit Podcast. This series, Max and Jonny explore how to become the master of your mindset.
Okay, we're back, guys, for another podcast with me and Jonny. Now we've got two married men.
Hey, we're off the market, ladies. I'm sorry. I knew.
So many disappointed women out there.
I could hear the sighs of disappointment.
We've had a little break in the podcast because I've been away in Mallorca getting married and in Berlin competing. So
big fortnight for you, that wasn't it?
Huge, yeah. Big. It's 12 days, and it's quite a lot to get into 12 days. But I'm back, and I'm happy to be here doing the podcast. Back to normality, back to coaching.
Back to here in the gym doing the podcast.
Yes.
That is the luxury.
That was what I was looking forward to.
Yeah.
So, similar format, guys. This is our mindset series. I think we are 3 in when this episode is released. Is it 3?
4.
4 in. No, 3 in. This is the 4th.
This is the 4th, yeah.
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 But we'll
So
be 3 in.
and this is the 4th.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
3 in when we release this podcast. This is the 4th. We're going to do about 8. This is our next instalment. We're going to start off with the traditional format, which is a warm-up question from one of our members. Actually, tell a lie, this person's not a member, they're a listener. So this is from one of our listeners.
We have listeners outside of the members.
We do, that's correct.
Cool.
We have a question from Amy who asks us, what is your favourite CrossFit workout and why? I will start by asking you that question, Jonny.
So I have 2 answers because I took this as a benchmark CrossFit workout. So in CrossFit you have the girl workouts and you have the hero workouts. And in the girl workout sense, my favourite is Isabel, which is 30 snatches for time at 60 kilos for guys and 40 kilos for women, as fast as possible. And my favourite hero, are you going to say something?
I was going to say, and why?
Oh, and why? Just because I like that, I'm good at it. I've always attended to being quite good at it. It was the first workout that I did that I had a real sense of achievement with. You know, I could do it RX quite quickly into my CrossFit journey, which I'm quite fortunate about. You know, we chatted about that kind of strength from playing rugby all my teenage years.
Yeah, it's a power-based workout, right? Short. We're looking at less than 2 minutes, maybe, for most people.
For elite athletes.
So less than 3 for most. Yeah.
You'd want it, I think if you were doing it and you wanted the correct stimulus, you'd go for a sub 2 time.
Yeah.
I mean, use a weight that would allow you to do it in sub 2 rather than going heavier.
Yeah, I mean,
you wanna do
Eddie
touch
Hall
and
did
goes.
this workout, didn't he? What's
Did he?
107 or something?
Really?
It's a world record, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, he muscle
snatch. Yeah.
slash just ripped the bar off the floor. Yeah.
So when I got one of my best times, I muscle snatched it because it was still very early in my CrossFit career that my snatch technique was awful. So rounded back, muscle snatch, literally just grip and rip.
Yeah.
And it was me and the owner of CrossFit Cardiff, literally, he texted me, it was like, bro, do you fancy doing a workout? I'm on my way back, I'll come pick you up. And I was like, yeah, fine. It was like a Sunday afternoon and we just went and did Isabel.
Oof.
Yeah, I was 20.
All I remember, I've done it 3 times, Isabel, and all I remember is severe forearm pain afterwards.
Yeah.
Not during. It's one of them workouts where you finish it.
Yeah.
And then you just get that forearm, just you can't get rid of it.
Yeah,
get rid of it. It's brutal.
So I've not done it in ages, actually. And the last time I did it was actually on a competition floor in Brussels Throwdown.
Cool.
And Dmitry Klokov was shouting at me because I was in the lead and I started to lose my lead because I got so sweaty I couldn't actually grip the bar. It was heavy as a bit as well, so it was 70.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And I didn't have I learned a lot of lessons that weekend, but I didn't have sweatbands. So and my chalk was getting really pasty. So that was frustrating. So I literally had Klokov next to me shouting, going, pick it up! And I was like 23, running with why this man was screaming at me. Anyway.
Did you shout back?
No, I was like, I'm trying!
You're on gear, so shut the fuck up.
No, it was bringing back memories of your parents shouting, I'm trying. Crying. Anyway, so that's my favourite
Number 2.
And Nate would be my favourite hero workout.
We briefly discussed this before we started. Nate's such a cool workout, isn't it?
Yeah, so for people that don't know it, it's a 20-minute AMRAP of 2 muscle ups, 4 handstand push-ups, and 8 kettlebell swings. RX weight being 2 pood for men, 32 kilos, and 1.5 pood for women, which is 24. So a pood is 16 kilos, which is such an interesting measure of anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that workout because I think for that workout, that's a great test of your ability to pace and your ability to stay consistent. It's only 2 muscle ups.
If you go too hot, you're going to start failing.
You screw it, yeah. So it's 2 muscle ups, it's 4 handstand push-ups, and it's 8 swings. So really, you want to be pacing it so that you can go unbroken each round. and like I've tested myself in the past of like, oh, can I EMOM this? I'm not sure I managed that, but I can't remember. Last time I did that was here. Last year? 18 months ago? Something like that?
Didn't we do it? Yeah, I think we would have done it in maybe in the breathe actually as like a technical WOD, yeah.
So I like that one.
Yeah, me too. Mine is slightly different, kind of shows maybe our personalities a little bit. Johnny going for the power output, barbell, and
then the aerobic
skill, skill-based sort of endurance. Yeah, mine is all about work output. So I like this workout's called Small, which is a hero workout. It's 3 rounds, 1,000-meter row, 50 burpees, 50 box jumps, and 800-meter run.
I have horrible memories of that workout.
And it is class. It's just a big, long aerobic workout, basically, and I love it. Yeah, it's just like high volume, high work rate. Like there's nothing that's too like skill based or weight based that's going to slow you down. You can just get your head down and go, and that's why I love it.
I think the good thing about Small is that you could do it in 2 different ways, because you could do that as a test of your aerobic capacity. Like, okay, let's see how you pace it, but also like how far you go, like how fast can you do that and maintain good form.
Yeah.
And then another way that you could do that would be a training workout. Be like, right, the goal is pace. It is intra-set repeatability.
Yeah,
like I want
all
you to
3 rounds the same.
Yeah, all 3 rounds the same time. You know, same pace on the rower, same pace on the run, same pace on the burpees. What's the other movement? Box jumps.
Box jumps, yeah.
Yeah, so like, you know, you could do box jump, step down, like same pace, like, you know, every rep looking the same. And I think that as a training workout is a really great tool.
Yeah, yeah. I think the reason it's my favourite is because there's no like barriers to entry. Like it's just about how hard you want to work, really. Like there's nothing going to slow you down. I like workouts like that, but then I also enjoy the challenge of like 2 muscle ups repeatedly. Like you're gonna have to, it's a different challenge. So the challenge there is like pacing so that you can actually hit it, whereas this challenge is like how hard do you want to work. And
yeah, I think you've got a case for burpees being potentially something you would scale for someone who maybe did not have the pressing endurance to sustain the movement for that long. Like 150 reps is no chump change. So it's one of those where if you see yourself breaking down on the burpees or the box jumps, at least then it's a sign of your muscle endurance in those movements needing work. So again, it's a good one to test and train with.
Yeah, wicked. Like I say, guys, we'll keep answering these questions. So I'll put the next podcast on with a little bit of a question box on Instagram. So if you've got any questions, fire it on there. We'll add you to the queue. Next part of the podcast is our strength section, which is our take on a popular fitness concept. Johnny is literally ready to go here, guys. He's in the start blocks ready. Yeah. You are so ready to answer this question. Give your opinion on this concept. The concept is the leaner you are, the fitter you are, which is promoted by probably, I'd say, 60-70% of PTs and things like that on Instagram. So yeah, I'll let you go first on this one, Johnny.
How long do we have? Yeah, so I don't agree with this for multiple reasons. Because I think the issue with this is the dark place that it can lead people. And I also think it's another sign of very, large anti-fat bias in the world at large, particularly the Western society that we're in the UK and the US, very much, pander to this. And the reason why I disagree is that you have literal examples of when it's not true. There's a case for people being of certain body shapes performing better at certain sports, and then you can start going down the line of certain genetic adaptations, and that's why the best are the best anyway, because even despite what they might, they obviously eat well and train hard, but even if I did that, I might not have the same results as Michael Phelps, for example, and you get into all of that genetic debate. But if we even looked at CrossFit as a sport, you can see someone like Brooke Wells, in my opinion, went too lean, and in the CrossFit Games suffered the consequences of that, and since has struggled more with injuries and low performance rates, because it was all about being as lean as possible rather than performing as well as possible. And so when you start putting leanness on the pedestal, and I have a personal experience with this as well, you have more capacity to undereat and do other things that aren't actually conducive to performance. And what doesn't get talked about a lot in performance is what's known as relative energy deficiency in sport, RED-S. And this is when you don't have enough energy availability to go through normal bodily processes. So you're exercising at a high volume and a high intensity, and you're not eating enough food to recover from that exercise or put back into your body, because your body is prioritizing the energy output for the exercise that you're pushing yourself through. Your body doesn't have enough energy for really important bodily processes. This is where women lose their periods.
So what bodily functions, so our members know?
Oh, right. Well, like, your body does so much, like digest food, repair cells, on a daily basis, the regenerative cell, production of sex steroid hormones and all of these things like take literal energy. And so when you're under eating and over exercising, your body will try to spare energy as much as it can. So it will slow you down. Non-exercise wise, this is when people get really, really tired. They get really sluggish. They get really fatigued. They fidget less. They move around less. So even if you're getting your steps in, your body will compensate where it can. It will convert more energy from food. So it will, digest more and hold on to more. And it will even give you less energy output in your workouts, and it means that you won't recover or adapt from your workouts nearly as well as you could if you were well fueled. So then you're not even, recovering and adapting from exercise.
Yeah.
So it's basically a race to the bottom.
Yeah. So sort of the key ones, just for members, if they're potentially in this situation, would be women losing their periods, men losing their sex drive.
Yeah.
Poor digestion.
Poor sleep.
Poor sleep,
low mood. So the good
maybe
thing,
injuries on the balance.
Yeah, and more injuries. So
what about cold all the time?
Yeah. Your immune system goes through the floor.
Yeah.
And heat as well. Yeah. So you'd be cold a lot more, and you get higher risk of infection. So your immune system's through the floor. And one of the things is like, you can know if you're well fed and your balance between exercise is good if you are hungry, happy, and horny. That is it, right? And that comes from the OPEX founder, James Fitzgerald. But when he said that, I was like, that's a really great way to remember
Good framework,
it. Because you can look at HRV and sleep patterns and things like that for measures of recovery. But if you're checking in with yourself, those three are a great benchmark. And if something's off, then something's off.
Yeah, right? Isn't that weird how when people are in that sort of too lean, they don't feel hungry? That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, because again, excessive high-intensity exercise can blunt appetite, which is why then, because that I'm a big advocate of intuitive eating, and I work a lot with more general population folk. With athletes, I've even chatted with a friend of mine, Matt, about intuitive eating for athletes, because we were talking about how do we apply this framework to an athletic population, because your hunger might not be present with high-intense exercise, but that's where the rational thought piece comes in, right? Because intuitive eating is the complex interplay of rational thought, emotion, and intuition. And so you rationally know that as someone who is performing excessively, you have a greater need for energy, and particularly carbohydrates, protein as well for recovery, but carbohydrates, remember carbs to go. So you can almost bypass your appetite to an extent to be like,
I need this fuel.
I'm going to eat 2 hours before training, I'm going to eat an hour after training, I'm going to eat every 3 hours, I'm going to keep myself well fed because I know that I've got a lot of energy. And you can monitor. It's so interesting with CrossFit in particular, because with the amount of CrossFitters that I used to work with, I would give them more food, eat more regularly, pre-workout, post-workout. And they would, I know that we're saying that leanness isn't the sign of fitness, but a lot of them would get leaner because they are recovering more, right? And they're recovering better, and their muscle mass would improve. And that's a big thing as well. Like, people chase leanness, not realizing that no matter how high your protein intake is, you're going to lose muscle mass when you lose overall weight. So, like I say, rather than focusing on weight loss, why don't you just focus on getting stronger? Focus on improving your performance. Focus on fueling your workouts and focusing on getting the best for you, because that looks different on so many different people. And yes, I chased leanness at the extent of many things, and that was perpetuated because of the leanness of the CrossFit Games athletes. And really, it's like,
well, it was just societal at that stage. When you were in CrossFit, it was about how lean you were. And I think it's shifting. You're seeing some bigger athletes out on the stage now, but definitely when I started and when you started, like you was a bit before me, like it was all about like zone diet, get lean, paleo, you know, all those things. And it was like, like you say, it was a race to the bottom. It was who could be the leanest and also the most depleted, and then not perform.
Yeah.
I'll jump in and give you a chance to rest and sort of gather what you talked about. But like my experience, I can just talk about my experience on this. So the leaner you are, the fitter you are is the concept. Like I went through a stage where I did zone diet and I got really, really lean. And I felt pretty awesome when it came to workouts, obviously, because I was lighter and I was doing less work. I was carrying around less. And I felt like I could train do workouts 3 times a day. I felt brilliant. But whenever I had to do anything that was heavy or power based, I felt awful. Or when I say awful, like I could snap or break, you know.
Right.
And my performance, workouts wise, improved, but my lifting and things like that just stunted. I just didn't get stronger, which at the time was like my main goal, right? Which was stupid of me. I thought I could do both.
Yeah.
I've actually, you know, been on both sides of the fence now and then gone the other way where I potentially put on a little bit of weight. And I think generally you feel more robust, more strong, more capable when you are less lean.
Yeah.
And then the other way, when you are super lean, you feel like you can smash like aerobic stuff, but you feel brittle and fragile and those things. And I think like it's just not true. That concept's just not true. The leaner you are, the fitter you are, because you know, look at someone like Reggie Fasson, who's one of the best UK athletes. He's not particularly lean. Jack Turner is one of the best guys who everyone knows in the gym, not particularly lean.
I think we then need to clarify what lean means.
Oh, okay.
Right? Because like if you look at Reggie Fasser, Jack Turner and Matt Fraser.
Relative to population, lean. Yeah, lean. I see what you're saying.
And this is the thing with like bigger blokes in CrossFit, right? Because like I used to get fat jokes against me even when I was leaner than I am now.
Yeah.
And that was another thing that...
Sorry, that was remiss of me there.
No. But this is what I'm talking about, is that like you're obviously talking about it in a comparison to the other CrossFit athletes.
Brett Bukowski.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas when we declare it to the population level, and again, it's the whole like, well, leanness can be very much driven by a genetic predisposition, and you know, we can look at the results of long-term weight loss and how terrible they are, and how much that requires to someone to continue doing, and lifestyle is a big factor, and that doesn't mean that someone's lifestyle is wrong, but someone's lifestyle as a professional athlete is very different to a mum or dad with 3 kids and a full-time job. Right, like as a CrossFit coach in London, I walked to the tube station, walked to the gym, did 2 training sessions a day, coached on my feet all day, walked home. 30,000 steps a day, easily, 3,500 calories a day, lean as heck, but like I was obsessed with tracking calories because I was obsessed with getting lean, right? And like that's that darker side then, is that preoccupation took over a lot of my life, because I was forcing myself into a shape that really I wasn't meant to be at.
I'll just jump in on there, and that actually, I'm probably going too much now, but there was like a weird, I will admit, mindset-wise, there was a weird, like, I was drawn to it. Did you find that as well?
Well, yeah, but we're both men.
Yeah.
Lean and shredded for men is like the pinnacle of like superhero, James Bond.
I kind of got a momentum with it, and I can see how like an eating disorder would occur from that, because like I was looking in the mirror and going, that's class, like maybe I'll cut out the extra protein yogurt I'm having, and like I was eating very little anyway, but you feel, I don't know, I was drawn to it in a way.
But I love how this is coming from you, Max, because there's not enough men that are speaking about this, which is why I'm so big on it now, because if I look at the classifications for eating disorders, I met the classification of bulimia. Yeah. Because bulimia is compensation, which can be through purging, which I never did, or through exercise, right? And I only realised that when I watched the Freddie Flintoff documentary on BBC, where he talked about the absolute hammering he got from the press for being fat, and then that led to his absolute fixation on being thin as a way to improve his fitness. But it's like he was already fit. He was playing test cricket. It wasn't about his fitness, it was about his image. And it was you're clearly not fit because you're fat. It's like, well, one, he wasn't that large, he had some extra fat on him, but that's the anti-fat bias that you get from people like Piers Morgan, who's an absolute dumpster fire of a bloke, who just perpetuate this whole, if you have any form of body fat on you, you are clearly unhealthy and it is your responsibility to fix. And when you grow up like someone like me, where I had different puppy fat stages of my childhood, adolescence and young adulthood, to have that constant like barrage of fat jokes meant that, of course, I was absolutely preoccupied with getting lean. And it became a game. I was like, right, can I get to a lower weight? Can I get an extra bicep vein? Can I get? Oh, I can see my ribs now. Can I take that further?
Mate,
It
that
was
is exactly
excessive.
how I felt. And like, I remember this, and this is not me like bragging or whatever, but I remember one time I actually saw an ab vein, and I was like, whoa, that's class. God, I want to have them everywhere. But like, why? It didn't help. Like, it didn't help me. And actually, I was performing in terms of relative, like, to the rest of the CrossFit field at the time, worse.
Yeah, right.
But
and it's interesting because you talked about zone, and there would be a very scientific reason for that. And that zone was what zone had the exact blocks.
Yeah,
like
it was like hormonally
protein,
based,
carb, fat.
hormonally balanced food.
But then it was like, if you get lean, double your fat. So you were like, oh, I felt great in workouts. So what you'd become was very fat adapted to aerobic metabolism.
Yeah.
But you had no carbs.
Yeah.
And lifting is a glycolytic activity. So of course you couldn't lift.
And that's why I just got
no
bent
fuel.
under every bar. Yeah.
So it's like, that makes exact sense when you look at it scientifically. I started to perform better when I first started like tracking calories and macros, but that's because I was more consistent with the amount of carbs I was having. And that's because I went from a very low carb bodybuilder meal plan into calorie tracking. So like my carbohydrates like doubled overnight basically. But then that had an inverse relationship. I started performing worse because I was still eating less food than I needed.
Yeah.
Because I was focused on losing weight and getting leaner. So it's like, I talk about that a lot more now that I'm on the other side of it because I can see it from what it is, but that's why I have so much to say about that topic.
Yeah, no, mate, it's like you say, it's quite a powerful one, like, and also quite a sinister one, isn't it? It like absorbs people.
When you see it,
Yeah.
you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
So then when you start seeing every what I eat in a day video and all the rest of it, you see personal trainers and people that are actually very, very deeply into very dark territories.
Yeah, even the old transformations that a lot of people do, like, oh, look at this transformation.
So
it's like one transformation where the lights shone at the person and like they've got their 2.5-year-old boxers on with holes in, and then the next transformation, they're tanned, oiled up, lights above them.
Oh yeah.
And they've got their brand new Calvin Klein sneaks, like awesome ones that you like.
So I've got a post coming up today, which obviously won't be the day that this is released. So on Thursday, the 8th of June, whatever it is today, about the reality of after photos. And that's because in my podcast, Beyond the Mirror, by the way, which anyone wants to listen to.
But
I did a podcast with a friend of mine, Marcus, and we talked about the reality of before and afters, because I used to market with them, because that's what I was taught as a fitness professional to use. And what I did a lot of my own was like, hey, look at me, I've solved the problem, like I'm not fat anymore, look at me, I've solved the cure. And it was all so toxic, and it is toxic because the minute that photo is taken, as you said, lighting, posing, dehydration, all of those things play into account, oil, all the rest of it. But as soon as that photo is taken, that's no longer an after. That photo is now a past. And I know for a fact, because I see it, I'm in many fitness circles, so many of those before and afters are photos of people that are from a year ago. And the reason I created the podcast is because I literally saw it, where this coach posted a before and after of this person. And I know the person now.
And they don't know that.
They look more like the before picture. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Because they're actually returning back to probably their set point.
Yeah.
And I talk a lot about that in my content, about set point and relationship with food and exercise and where you are meant to be. Because if we look at the reality of long-term weight loss, and I see fitness professionals parading this as if this is a good thing. They're like, yeah, look, you can maintain at least 10% of your body weight if you weigh yourself every day and continue to track all your food. And it's like, well, do you do that? And they're like, no, because I've got good habits. It's like, do you have good habits? Or do you have a lifestyle that allows you to be much more active than the Gen Pop and also, you've never been a different shape in your life. And if anything, you're just more muscular because you've lifted weights for the last 10 years. Nothing wrong with that, but you've never gone from fat to thin. And they're like, oh yeah, that's true. It's like, so you don't have better habits. You have a different body.
And a different lifestyle.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on. So I feel like we could do a full podcast on that.
Maybe we should.
Yeah, maybe we should actually. We'll do a nutrition series maybe, mate, eh? Let you take the lead. Cool. So moving on to our workout then, guys, which is all about this mindset. Today I'm going to talk through, and Johnny's going to sort of chip in here and there based on his experience of Ben Bergeron, who is the owner of CrossFit New England in America. He's one of the sort of top or most experienced CrossFit coaches in the world at the moment, and he is also a mindset coach. So he delivered a couple of TED Talks on mindset, and his goal when he delivered these TED Talks was to give a framework for people to sort of think about what mindset is. And in his head, people often confuse mental toughness or mental resilience with physical toughness, physical resilience. An example would be, when David Goggins sets off and he's got his knees taped together and his ankles taped together and he's got injuries here and there, and
because he's got a million demons,
still completes, these marathons and ultra marathons that he does. That's actually physical resilience and physical toughness. The mindset is a different piece. So he came up with this framework with these levels. So you got level 1 through 5. Level 1 is called the victim, and level 2 is called the pessimist. Level 3 is called the optimist. Level 4 is the realist, and level 5 is the warrior. Very American, that, isn't it? The warrior at the end.
Yeah. Oh well.
So his take on this is that you have different levels based on your life activities. So, for example, with Johnny, is singing, he could be a level 3, an optimist. Is CrossFit, he could be a warrior, level 5. His, parenthood, is he's about to enter, could be level 1 victim. And it's about how in different areas of your life you have different responses to adversity. And an example that we're going to use as a theme throughout, we're going to do like a couple out of the gym, and then we're going to bring it back into the gym afterwards to try and explain an example. An example would be how you react to the adversity of your dog getting muddy on a walk. A very close to home topic for both of us. Yeah. So let's talk through their levels. So an example is you go out walking with your dog and they find the biggest, muddiest, stagnant pool of water ever, and they jump in and they get really muddy, which happens, right? The victim response to that would be, why does this always happen to me? My dog always goes in the mud. I never have time to clean them afterwards. Why does this happen on the worst day for me when I've not got time to deal with it? The pessimist goes, dogs always get muddy. Dogs always get muddy and, filthy, and, it's shit having a dog because you always have to clean them afterwards. The optimist goes, dogs got muddy today, but probably won't tomorrow, or, they don't always get muddy, the optimist. The realist goes, dogs get muddy sometimes, and dogs don't get muddy other times. And, you have to take the rough with the smooth. And finally, the warrior goes, dogs got muddy. How can I use this situation to help me improve? And what can I get out of this situation? What's the opportunities that are available to me? So my take, or my sort of twist on what Ben's delivered, which I actually quite like as a framework. I do think it's useful and it brings awareness. The problem that I think with it, sorry Ben, because I do like Ben. Johnny's not so much, but I do like Ben. My take on it is that it's not just levels, and in Ben's head, the framework is how you respond. If you respond with a realist mentality, you are a realist. If you respond with a victim mentality, you are a victim. I don't think it's that. I think it's a levels-based system, and that is how quickly you move through the levels. I think everyone in every situation of adversity is going to have a reaction, and then it's how quickly you move through those. So the dog jumps into the muddy water. I think everyone's going to go, oh, God, why is my dog always going to water? They're going to always have that initial thought. Then it's how quickly you move from, in my opinion, mental toughness is how quickly you move from that initial reaction to, okay, dog's got muddy, what can I get out of this situation? How can I use this as an opportunity? And so the kind of main reason I wanted to talk through this is because I know a lot of our members listen to Chasing Excellence as the podcast, and I think I've had a few discussions with people about this, and I think people think that they're mentally weak if they have these negative thoughts. So if they come back from a walk and their dog's absolutely filthy, they think, oh, God, I wish he wasn't. They think that they're mentally weak, and I don't think that's the case.
No. And that's why, thanks for throwing me under the bus there about Ben Bergeron. And if you're listening to this, Ben, it's not that I don't like you. It's just you've said a few things I don't agree with, which is fair, because we're allowed to have different
Don't
opinions.
worry, I don't think Ben's listening.
I actually, yeah, exactly, if only. Ben has done some great things, and I've liked a lot of his work. He actually posted something about like the ideal body fat percentage of a CrossFit athlete, men and women, which is why I then was like, ooh, hard pass, massive unfollow. But we'll bypass that for now because we've chatted about that at length. With this, it's like any framework, right? Is that the utility for the person is the most important, and you don't want to feel victimized by the classifications. And that's the issue I find with a lot of the fitness industry, is that like, oh, my client's just a victim and they just don't want it enough and blah blah blah, because they don't see the massive privilege that they have in their position, and also the fact that people are different to them, and a lot of people are conditioned to hate exercise and healthy food, particularly if they grew up a bit larger like I did, because it's like, eat worse tasting food and exercise more because this is all your fault. Right, so that's why a lot of people then grow up hating those two things. But on the flip side is that with a victim mentality here, it's not that you have a victim mentality, it's that the human brain can actually be very, very wired for negativity, right? And negative thoughts are so human, and it's not about not having negative thoughts, because that's just an impossibility. It's just
it's completely unrealistic.
Not realistic at all.
Yeah.
It's instead noticing that it is a negative thought, and it does not define you, and it is not you. It is a thought. And you then can practice over time being more self-compassionate and self-aware of your thoughts. This is where mindfulness and conscious thinking is a great tool, because it's more about, oh, that's an interesting negative thought. That doesn't serve me. In fact, I would rather think this, or I'm going to ignore that thought because it is negative, and therefore I don't need to believe it or act on it.
Yeah, and that's where I think that like the speed will differ in situations as well.
Yeah.
So we'll run through it again with a second example, which is obviously a little bit more severe, and I've gone with you return from your dog walk, and instead of your dog being muddy, your house is burnt down.
Very extreme.
Very extreme. And I, again, like talking through, house burns down, level 1, the victim goes, why me? I'm so unlucky. I can't believe my house is burnt down. Pessimist goes, houses always burn down. There was a chance that I was going to get it. It's happened to me. Optimist goes, that's unlikely to ever happen to me again. No problem. Realist goes, some houses burn down, some don't. It just happens. It is what it is. Warrior goes, houses burnt down. Okay, what can I get out of this situation? What are the opportunities for me to grow as a person?
And let me just say that if you're not at the warrior mentality, the moment you see your house is burned down, then that's absolutely
normal.
Fine.
Exactly.
Because it's like, it's so. If my house had burnt down when I've been out for a dog, I'd be like, oh my God, like, what is the chance? You know what I mean? It would be completely catastrophic at the first instant.
Yeah, so this was my whole point why I wanted to raise this as a topic, is it's only a useful framework if you think about it as how you progress through the levels, right? And like for a dog walk, a dog getting muddy on the walk, you should be able to get to warrior pretty quickly. Like, it's not a big deal. House burning down, that's a big deal. It might take you a year, 2 years, 3 years to get to warrior and go, actually, as a result of my house burning down, we had to save more for another house. I've now learned skills about saving money that I didn't have before, and as a result, I'm a better person, or whatever. But like, what I think me and Johnny both sit really, really like together on is that no one gets back to the house burning down and goes, excellent, what can I get out of this situation?
No, because you would be mental.
Exactly. There's something wrong with you.
Yeah, because you're not. Because again, we're human.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's great, as you mentioned, to say how quickly can you move through these levels, and it might take you more time depending on the severity of the situation, and also what else happens. Because again, we are all unique, right? So this is where some people don't understand their privilege, because someone who has a house burnt down, but then they have
2 spare houses.
They have family in the they've got rental properties, they have family in the area, they've got somewhere they can move into really quickly, and like loads of supportive friends and family. That's going to be different to someone whose house burns down. They're from another country, they've got no friends and family in the area, and no spare cash, and they weren't insured.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't afford the monthly payments of insurance. Like, that's a very different situation.
Absolutely.
And as you said there, oftentimes your hindsight can allow you that pleasure in a different situation to look back and go, actually, I am who I am because that event happened. And we talked about this before we came on air.
Yeah.
Because I talked about my dad passing away when I was in my teens.
Yeah.
You know, at the time, that's horrific. Like,
Yeah.
and it still is. You know, it was when I was 16. It's over half of my lifetime ago now. But I can see from my time now how we responded in that situation as best we could. You know, my brother and I focused on school, and we focused on supporting each other. We focused on being there for my mum. And my mum was like, well, I've got a business to run here, because that's what my parents did. They ran their own company. She was like, I've got to find a way that I can manage this by myself. And thankfully we have the internet. So again, thankfully we have the internet so that she could pivot the business, because they took all of their orders through phone and email. This was before you had shopping carts on websites.
Jesus.
Yeah, 2006. But that technology was new. So she bought a software that allowed her to create a shopping cart website so that people could place orders online and pay through the internet rather than phone call and email. So actually increased the revenue of the business through that, through not hiring staff. So, you know, I tell my mum this all the time. I'm like, you're a fucking rock star, you know, because you did these things in light of the biggest catastrophe you could probably face, right? And I also look back now and say my brother and I are different people because of that event, because of the way that we adapted and what happened afterwards. You know, I wouldn't have done musical theatre at uni had that not happened. I'd be down a completely different path.
Yeah. Yeah, and like something as tragic as that, like a bereavement in the family might take you 5 years to get through those levels, or 10 years, depending, like you say, on the situation. But I think kind of going back to our original point is no one has a family member die and goes, awesome, what can I get from this situation? It's just completely unrealistic. So what we wanted to sort of dispel was this myth that, like, in order to be a warrior, you have to respond immediately in the right way. And actually, it brings me on to my second point, which is, I think having those thoughts of like, why has this happened to me? That's awful. Can't believe this has happened is one thing. But actually, my test of mental fitness, what I would test is, okay, what are your actions that you took as a result of that situation? So in your mum's situation, right, my partner's no longer here to help me with the business. I'm going to have to work without that help. I need a software system. And she took action and she delivered it. And as a result, kept food on the table for you and your brother.
Yeah.
Unreal. That is mental toughness.
Yeah.
Like, incredible mental toughness. Like, it's the actions that what's the next best thing? By the way, not contrasting this to your situation.
No, I wouldn't want that.
An example for this weekend for us on the work was, first event, get to the final worm and we've probably gone a little bit too hot. Jack and Tara completely blown up from the sandbag and double unders they had to do twice through before they got onto the last set of worm clean and jerks. We get out there and Jack's a real asset for us on the worm because he's so strong. He switches me onto the front because his back's absolutely blown. I come onto the front and we miss a rep because I'm not used to the technique of being at the front.
How hard is the front, by the way?
Yeah, brutal. Thanks, Jack, for being on the front all the time.
Yeah, it's all
and then we miss a rep. We go again, second one, we miss the second one. Now, in that situation, we haven't got long to get to warrior, which is like, what's the next best thing that I have to do? And like, we could quite easily turn and go, whose fault is this? Why are we missing? Like, all those things. But the next best thing we can do at that point, when the worm's at 90 degrees, is put it back in our lane.
Yeah.
What's the next thing after that? Switch back to me and Jack.
Yeah.
What's the next thing after that? Do a rep.
Yeah.
And that's what we did.
No, good.
If we'd have spent 10 seconds in pessimist going, it's the end of the workout and everyone always misses reps at the end of the workout, this is our fate.
Yeah.
Or it's okay, I'll just do another rep and it'll be fine, optimist. Or really, if we'd have wasted time, we'd have wasted time on the workout. What we needed to go straight from through the levels as quickly as possible, which, like I say, not contrasting that in any way, shape or form to the situation that you had, but like, that's an example, a gym-based example.
More relative probably to the experiences here.
Yeah. So on the moving on then, so just tying it back into the gym, we've got a gym-based example and I kind of want to run through that. So the example is someone who misses a training session, right? So the victim says, the there's no way I can train. My boss doesn't give me enough time. You know, I've missed this session every single week. I'm just going to cancel my membership. Yeah, that's the victim. Pessimist goes, this situation always happens to me. It happens to everybody. We haven't got enough time to train at the moment. No one's got enough money, blah, blah. The optimist goes, hopefully next month it'll be okay. Yeah, and even though it might not be. The realist goes, it's okay. Sometimes we miss sessions. Sometimes we don't. That's normal. And then the warrior goes, I've missed a session. Okay, what else, what potentially can I do? Can I lean into my recovery? Can I make sure my next meal is slightly better? Can I do a quick run instead? What can I learn from what the opportunities presented to me in this situation?
Yeah, and I love that because again, it's remembering because this is where we can talk about the toxicity of the fitness industry on social media till the cows come home. But there's a lot of like, oh, we all have the same amount of time in the day, and you just got to want it more, and blah 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 blah. And actually, that's not true because we all have a different amount of things that we need to fit inside that time: commutes, bosses, workloads, kids, all of those things.
Yeah.
And so it can be easy to get caught up in that, and you are human to get caught up in that. We all do, right? Because you are allowed to complain about how unfair life can be in those situations, and then also on the flip side, think about your lifestyle and what that brings you. You know, the job that you travel to, you know, pays you a wage that allows you to have the kids and the lifestyle that you have now. And then you've got to think, so how can I be as active as I can? And if I want to be more active, is this routine still serving me? Do I have opportunities to change? Is it more about doing, smaller things more regularly, like more breaks from the desk, like push-ups in the office, or going on a quick run after work, taking running gear and stuff. And it's what we call in fitness research implementation intentions, where it's like, if this happens, then I will do this. If this happens, then I'll do this. And you can kind of create a bunch of these for regular scenarios, but you can also create a bunch of these for scenarios that might not always happen. I have to work late, or kids got stuck at school, or I have to go pick up the kids at school because my partner can't, or the oven broke and we need to make dinner. So it's like, if this happens, then I will do this. And if you create a backlog of these in your phone or something like that, you start to create a real repertoire of things that you are accepted with. Because sometimes it's like, well, I'm just going to have a rest day.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because I'm still going to be able to get to the gym 3 times this week, and that's better than none.
Yeah. And again, with that situation, it might take you a day, 10 minutes, an hour, a day to go, actually, it doesn't always happen to me. This is the first session I've missed because of work, in the last month. And actually, what I can do is work on my running that I wanted to run on, practice before anyway. And it might take you a little while to get there, but as long as you're aware of the thought process and moving through the levels, then you still, have some mental toughness and mental resilience. And no one's expecting you to go, great, I missed the session, awesome. Yeah. What can I get from this situation? No one's gonna react like that.
No.
Yeah. Wicked. Right, guys. Hope you enjoyed that. Got something from it. If you want to dive into levels a little bit more, check out Chasing Excellence. It's Ben's podcast. It is useful to have a reference to them, and I do have awareness of the thoughts now because of the framework. I listen to myself and I go, oh, that's the victim. Okay, cool. And I know when it's coming. I do think it's worth checking out. If not, use that framework, and hopefully today you've sort of give yourself a little bit of compassion when you do have some negative reactions to adversity, and maybe you can look back in situations in your life that you've had where you've had difficult situations and probably reached that warrior, eventually towards the end anyway. Cool. Thanks, Jonny.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for listening to the ShireFit Podcast with Max and Jonny. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you next week for another episode.